Hello, everyone. Imagine this. It's 2008. Airbnb is just a fledgling idea, a way for people to rent out air mattresses in their living rooms. Fast forward to today, and it's a global phenomenon, a company that has redefined how we travel, how we connect, and how we experience the world. But here's the thing. Behind this incredible success story is a leader who did something most of us are taught to avoid. Brian Chesky micromanaged, and he did it brilliantly. Micromanagement is often seen as a leadership flaw, a dirty word in the world of management. It conjures images of overbearing bosses, stifled creativity, and demoralized teams. But what if I told you that micromanagement, when done with intention and care, can be a powerful tool for excellence? What if I told you that some of the most successful leaders in history have used micromanagement not as a means of control, but as a way to protect their vision, especially during critical moments? This is exactly what Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, demonstrated in the early days of his company. His hands-on approach wasn't about stifling his team or asserting dominance. It was about ensuring that Airbnb stayed true to its core purpose, its why, during a time when every decision could make or break the company. Let's take a step back and think about what micromanagement really is. At its core, it's about paying attention to the details. And details matter. They matter because they're the building blocks of the bigger picture. When you're building something from scratch, like Airbnb was in its early days, the details are everything. Brian Chesky understood this. He knew that the experience of every guest, the design of every listing, and the tone of every communication had to reflect the values and vision of Airbnb. If even one detail was off, it could undermine the entire brand. So he got involved. He reviewed listings. He stayed in Airbnb homes. He even personally responded to customer service emails. This wasn't because he didn't trust his team. It was because he cared deeply about the vision of Airbnb and wanted to ensure that every single touch point aligned with that vision. This level of involvement is often misunderstood. People assume that micromanagement is about control, about a leader's inability to let go. But in Brian's case, it was about something far more profound. It was about alignment. When you're building a company, especially one that's trying to disrupt an entire industry, alignment is everything. You need everyone from the CEO to the newest intern to understand and embody the company's why. And sometimes the best way to achieve that alignment is for the leader to roll up their sleeves and dive into the details. By doing so, Brian wasn't just ensuring that the work was done right, he was teaching his team what right looked like. He was setting a standard, a benchmark for excellence that would guide the company as it grew. But here's the key. Brian didn't micromanage forever. He did it during the critical moments, the formative years of Airbnb, when the company's culture and values were still being defined. Once that foundation was solid, once the team understood the why and how to bring it to life, he stepped back. This is the nuance of micromanagement that so many people miss. It's not a permanent state. It's a phase of leadership. It's about knowing when to dive deep and when to let go. It's about understanding that leadership isn't about avoiding micromanagement altogether. It's about knowing when and how to use it to protect your vision. This approach requires a delicate balance. On one hand, you need to be deeply involved in the details to ensure that your vision is being executed correctly. On the other hand, you need to empower your team to trust them to take ownership of their work. Brian Chesky struck this balance beautifully. By micromanaging in the early days, he created a strong foundation for Airbnb. He instilled a culture of excellence, a commitment to the why that would guide the company as it scaled. And once that foundation was in place, he trusted his team to build on it. The lesson here is clear. Leadership isn't about avoiding micromanagement. It's about knowing when and how to dive deep to protect your why. It's about understanding that micromanagement, when done with intention and care, can be a tool for excellence. It's about recognizing that the details matter, especially in the early stages of building something great. And most importantly, it's about knowing when to step back, when to let go, and when to trust your team to carry the vision forward. This is the secret art of micromanagement, and it's a lesson that every leader can learn from. In business, trust is everything. It's the foundation of every relationship. Between a company and its customers, between a leader and their team, and between colleagues working toward a shared goal. But trust isn't built through grand gestures or lofty promises. It's built in the details. It's built in the small, often overlooked moments that show you care. This is a lesson that Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, understood deeply. His approach to micromanagement wasn't about mistrusting his team or asserting control. It was about creating a culture where every detail reflected the company's values. It was about building trust, one small decision at a time. When Airbnb was in its early days, Brian knew that the company's success would hinge on its ability to create a unique and memorable experience for its users. This wasn't just about providing a place to stay. It was about creating a sense of belonging, a feeling of trust and connection between strangers. And to achieve that, every detail mattered: the photos of the listings, the wording of the descriptions, the tone of the customer service emails. All of these small elements had to align with Airbnb's vision. Brian understood that if even one detail was off, it could erode the trust that the company was trying to build. So he got involved, he reviewed listings, he stayed in Airbnb homes, he even personally responded to customer emails. This wasn't because he didn't trust his team, it was because he cared deeply about the experience they were creating. He knew that trust is built in the details, and he was willing to put in the work to get those details right. This level of attention to detail sent a powerful message to his team. It showed them that the small things mattered, that every decision they made had the potential to impact the company's mission. And when leaders care deeply about the small things, they inspire their teams to care deeply about the big things. This is the infinite game of building trust through detail. It's not about micromanaging for the sake of control. It's about setting a standard of excellence, a commitment to the values that define your organization. It's about showing your team that you're willing to put in the effort to get the details right. And in doing so, you inspire them to do the same. But this approach requires more than just attention to detail. It requires empathy. Brian Chesky's micromanagement was rooted in a deep understanding of the people he was serving, the hosts and guests who were the lifeblood of Airbnb. He knew that every detail, no matter how small, had the potential to impact someone's experience. A poorly lit photo could deter a potential guest. A dismissive customer service response could alienate a host. By focusing on these details, Brian wasn't just building a successful business, he was building trust. He was showing his customers that he cared about their experience, and in doing so, he was creating a loyal community of users who believed in Airbnb's mission. This is the power of leading through detail. When you show your team that you care about the small things, you create a culture where excellence becomes the norm. You inspire your team to take ownership of their work, to think critically about the impact of their decisions, and to strive for the highest standards in everything they do. And when your team sees that you're willing to put in the effort to get the details right, they'll follow your lead. They'll start to care as deeply about the big things as you do about the small ones. The lesson here is clear: trust is built in the details. It's not enough to have a grand vision or a compelling mission statement. You have to back it up with action. You have to show your team and your customers that you care about the small things, that you're willing to put in the work to get the details right. This is what Brian Chesky did at Airbnb, and it's a big part of why the company has been so successful. By focusing on the details, he built a culture of trust. A culture where every decision, no matter how small, reflected the company's values. And when you build that kind of culture, you create something that's not just successful, but enduring. Because trust, once earned, is the foundation of everything. In the early days of Airbnb, the company was a whirlwind of chaos. It was a bold, audacious idea, a platform that allowed people to rent out their homes to strangers, but it was also an idea that could easily have fallen apart. The concept was untested, the market was uncertain, and the team was small and scrappy, trying to build something revolutionary with limited resources. It was in this environment of chaos that Brian Chesky, Airbnb's CEO, made a decision that would shape the future of the company. He chose to micromanage. But this wasn't the kind of micromanagement that stifles creativity or demoralizes teams. This was micromanagement with a purpose. It was a deliberate, hands-on approach designed to turn chaos into clarity and ensure that the company's vision wasn't diluted as it scaled. At the heart of Brian's approach was a deep understanding of the importance of alignment. When you're building something from scratch, especially something as unconventional as Airbnb, alignment is everything. Every decision, every detail, every interaction has to reflect the company's vision. But achieving that alignment is easier said than done. especially in the early days when everything is moving at breakneck speed. That's where Brian's micromanagement came in. By diving deep into key aspects of the business, whether it was the design of the website, the quality of the listings, or the tone of customer communications, he was able to create a sense of clarity and direction. He was able to ensure that every piece of the puzzle fit together in a way that supported the company's vision. This hands-on approach was particularly important in the early days of Airbnb because the company was operating in uncharted territory. There was no playbook for what they were trying to do, no roadmap to follow. Every decision was a leap into the unknown, and every misstep had the potential to derail the entire operation. In this environment, Brian's micromanagement served as a stabilizing force. It provided a level of oversight and attention to detail that helped the team navigate the uncertainty and stay focused on the bigger picture. By micromanaging key aspects of the business, Brian was able to create a sense of order amidst the chaos, a foundation of clarity that allowed the company to grow and scale. But here's the thing, Brian's micromanagement wasn't just about maintaining control. It was about protecting the vision. He understood that as the company grew, there would be countless opportunities for that vision to get diluted, for the focus to shift, for the values to get lost in the noise. By being deeply involved in the details, he was able to ensure that the company stayed true to its core purpose, even as it expanded into new markets and faced new challenges. This is the role of micromanagement in scaling a vision. It's a bridge between the big picture and the day-to-day execution, a way to ensure that the vision remains intact even as the company evolves. The key to making this approach work is alignment. Micromanagement, when done without purpose, can be toxic. It can create resentment, stifle creativity, and undermine trust. But when it's aligned with a clear vision and a shared sense of purpose, it can be incredibly powerful. It can create a culture of excellence, a commitment to the details that bring the vision to life. This is what Brian Chesky achieved at Airbnb. By micromanaging with purpose, he was able to turn chaos into clarity and create a company that not only survived its early days, but thrived as it scaled. The lesson here is clear. Micromanagement, when aligned with purpose, can be a bridge between vision and execution. It's not about control, it's about clarity. It's about ensuring that every decision, every detail, every action supports the bigger picture. And when you get that right, you create something that's not just successful, but enduring. Because a vision, no matter how bold or ambitious, is only as strong as the execution that brings it to life. And sometimes, the best way to ensure that execution is to roll up your sleeves, dive into the details, and lead by example. That's the role of micromanagement in scaling a vision, and it's a lesson that every leader can learn from. Brian Chesky's leadership at Airbnb is a masterclass in understanding the delicate balance between control and trust, between diving deep into the details and knowing when to step back. In the early days of Airbnb, Brian was deeply involved in every aspect of the business. He reviewed listings, stayed in Airbnb homes, and even personally responded to customer service emails. To an outsider, this might have looked like classic micromanagement, a leader who couldn't let go, who didn't trust his team. But in reality, it was something far more strategic. Brian wasn't micromanaging because he lacked trust in his team. He was doing it to build a strong foundation. He understood that in order for Airbnb to scale and succeed in the long term, the company's culture, values, and customer experience had to be rock solid. And once that foundation was in place, he did something remarkable. He let go. This is the art of letting go. But only after you've built the foundation. It's a lesson in leadership that goes against the grain of conventional wisdom. We're often told that micromanagement is a flaw, a sign of poor leadership. But the truth is, there are moments in a company's journey when micromanagement is not just necessary, but essential. Those moments are usually in the beginning, when the company is still finding its footing, when the culture is being defined, and when every decision has the potential to shape the future. This is the phase of leadership where you roll up your sleeves and dive into the details, not because you want to control everything, but because you want to set the standard for excellence. You want to show your team what great looks like, so that when you step back, they can carry that standard forward. For Brian Chesky, this phase of micromanagement was about more than just ensuring quality. It was about embedding Airbnb's values into every aspect of the business. He knew that as the company grew, it would face countless challenges and opportunities, and that the only way to navigate them successfully was to have a strong, unwavering foundation. By being deeply involved in the early days, he was able to instill a culture of care, attention to detail, and customer obsession that would guide the company as it scaled. He was able to create a blueprint for success, a set of principles and practices that would endure long after he stepped back. But here's the key. Brian didn't micromanage forever. Once the foundation was solid, once the team understood the company's why and how to bring it to life, he let go. This is the critical distinction between toxic micromanagement and purposeful leadership. Micromanagement isn't a permanent state, it's a phase. It's a tool that leaders use to build a foundation, to set a standard, and to create clarity. And once that foundation is in place, the real work of leadership begins. The work of empowering your team, of trusting them to take ownership, and of stepping back so they can shine. This transition isn't easy. Letting go requires trust. Not just in your team, but in the foundation you've built. It requires confidence that the culture and values you've instilled will guide the company even when you're not in the room. For Brian, this meant trusting his team to uphold the standards of excellence he had set, to care as deeply about the customer experience as he did, and to make decisions that aligned with Airbnb's vision. And because he had taken the time to build that foundation, that trust was well placed. The team didn't just meet his expectations, they exceeded them, taking Airbnb to heights that even Brian might not have imagined in the early days. The lesson here is clear. Micromanagement isn't a flaw, it's a phase. It's a phase of leadership that ensures long-term success by building a strong foundation. But it's only effective if you know when to let go. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning your team or your vision. It means trusting the foundation you've built and empowering your team to build on it. It means shifting from a role of control to a role of support, from being the person who does the work to the person who enables others to do it. This is the art of letting go, but only after you've built the foundation. It's a lesson that every leader can learn from, whether you're building a startup, leading a team, or running a global organization. Because leadership isn't about holding on to control, it's about knowing when to dive deep and when to step back. It's about building something that's not just successful in the moment, but enduring in the long term. And sometimes the best way to do that is to micromanage, but only until the foundation is strong enough to stand on its own. Brian Chesky's approach to leadership at Airbnb is often described as hands-on, detail-oriented, and even micromanaging. But to label it simply as micromanagement is to miss the deeper truth. His approach was rooted in empathy. It wasn't about control or asserting authority. It was about connection. It was about understanding the human side of the business, the employees who were building the company, the customers who were trusting their homes and travel experiences to Airbnb, and the hosts who were opening their doors to strangers. This empathy-driven approach transformed what could have been seen as a leadership flaw into a powerful tool for building trust, loyalty, and a culture of care. At the heart of Brian's micromanagement was a deep understanding of the people he was serving. He knew that Airbnb wasn't just a platform for booking accommodations, it was a platform for human connection. Every listing, every interaction, every detail of the customer experience had the potential to impact someone's life. A poorly lit photo could mean the difference between a guest choosing Airbnb or a hotel. A dismissive customer service response could alienate a host who had poured their heart into creating a welcoming space. Brian understood that these small details weren't just operational concerns, they were emotional ones. They were about trust, belonging, and the human experience. And so he got involved. He reviewed listings, he stayed in Airbnb homes, he personally responded to customer emails. This wasn't micromanagement for the sake of control, it was micromanagement for the sake of connection. This empathy-driven approach sent a powerful message to his team. It showed them that the small things mattered, not because they were small, but because they had the power to impact people's lives. When Brian personally reviewed a listing or responded to a customer complaint, he wasn't just ensuring quality, he was modeling a culture of care. He was showing his team that every decision they made, no matter how small, had the potential to create a meaningful connection. And when leaders care deeply about the human side of the business, they inspire their teams to do the same. This is the power of leading with empathy. It creates a ripple effect, transforming micromanagement from a top-down control mechanism into a shared commitment to excellence. But empathy isn't just about understanding the customer, it's also about understanding the team. Brian's micromanagement wasn't just about ensuring a great customer experience. It was about creating an environment where his employees felt supported, valued, and empowered. By diving deep into the details, he was able to identify pain points, provide guidance, and set a standard of excellence that his team could aspire to. This hands-on approach wasn't about mistrusting his team. It was about investing in them. It was about showing them that he cared enough to roll up his sleeves and work alongside them, to understand their challenges and to help them succeed. And when employees feel that level of support and connection, they're more likely to go above and beyond, not because they have to, but because they want to. This is the human side of micromanagement. It's about connection, not control. It's about understanding that every decision, every detail, every interaction has the potential to impact someone's life. And when leaders approach micromanagement with empathy, it becomes a powerful tool for building trust and loyalty, not just with customers, but with employees as well. It creates a culture where people feel seen, heard, and valued, where they know that their work matters, and where they're inspired to bring their best selves to the table. The lesson here is clear. Micromanagement, when driven by empathy, is not a flaw, it's a strength. It's a way of leading that prioritizes connection over control, that values the human side of the business as much as the operational side. And when leaders embrace this approach, they create something that's not just successful, but meaningful. They build trust, loyalty, and a culture of care that endures long after the micromanagement phase has passed. This is the human side of micromanagement, and it's a lesson that every leader can learn from. Because at the end of the day, leadership isn't just about achieving results, it's about creating connections that matter. And sometimes the best way to do that is to dive deep into the details, not because you want to control everything, but because you care enough to get it right. In conclusion, Brian Chesky's approach to micromanagement teaches us that leadership is not about avoiding the details, but about knowing when and how to embrace them with purpose and empathy. By diving deep in the early days, he built a strong foundation of trust, alignment, and excellence at Airbnb. His hands-on approach wasn't about control, it was about connection, care, and protecting the company's vision. Micromanagement, when driven by intention and empathy, becomes a powerful tool for scaling a vision, inspiring teams, and building lasting trust. The secret art of micromanagement lies in understanding its role as a phase of leadership, one that ensures long-term success by creating a culture where every detail reflects the values that matter most. The next time you hear the word micromanagement, don't cringe. Think of Brian Chesky and Airbnb. Think of the power of details, the importance of alignment, and the role of empathy in leadership. Because when micromanagement is done with purpose, it's not a flaw, it's an art. And like any art, it requires intention, care, and a deep understanding of the why. Thank you.